The mail arrived at 7:13 in the morning, just as I poured my first cup of coffee. No subject, just the name of my daughter, Emily Johnson. For a second, I smiled. Maybe she wanted to share a last-minute detail about the place. Maybe she was writing to thank me again for helping with the deposit, the flowers. But when I opened it, I knew. Hello, Mom. After much talk with the parents of Michael and the organizer, we closed the guest list. The ceremony in Vado de Guadalupe will be very intimate. Michael's mother insisted on keeping it like this, but we will broadcast it live. You can watch it from home. It will be like being there. Here's the Google Meet link. With love, Camila. It will be like being there. My hand didn't shake. I didn't drop the cup, but I stared at the screen until the coffee cooled. There was no "Dear Mom," no warmth, just Mom, like a label attached to a shipping box. I read it again and again. My eyes stopped at the last line. Haha, a laugh, a cringe, shoulders, or just another way to make something cruel sound nice. I wrote 4 words, sure, enjoy your day, without excitement, without signs, just that. And I sent it. I washed the cup, put on my pants, went to the office, and left as if it were any Tuesday, but it wasn't. Something changed, not in the world perhaps, nor in Camila, but in me. For years, I swallowed things. I adapted, made peace with being the last one on her list, but this was not a missed call or a late birthday card. It was intentional. It was her saying, I don't want you there. I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I just drove to work silently, wondering when my love turned optional. It's strange what you remember when something breaks inside you. Not noisy things, the quiet ones. I remembered standing in front of the old washing machine years ago, balancing a basket of clothes on my hip, deciding whether to pay for the gas or send the deposit on time for Emily's university residence. I chose the deposit. That month, we used extra sweaters. Nobody tells you that about being a mother. It's not only love, lessons, or birthdays. It's the bills, the dentist appointments you postpone, yours, the shoes you don't buy, the vacation you never take. It's the invisible math you do every day. How much of myself can I give, and will it be enough? After James's death, I had 2 options, break down or bend over. I bent over. I worked 50-hour weeks in the law office. I carried the whole roof, the broken washing machine, the broken hearts. I never made them feel the weight of what it cost me. That was my burden. Camila changed careers twice. Each change meant more credits, more tuition. I paid without doubt. When she wanted to move to Monterey for a temporary job, I emptied my savings for her deposit. It barely lasted 6 months. I also paid for the return flight. And when, at 27, she cried for a man who left her with nothing but a coffee mug and a half-empty bookshelf, I flew there. I made her tea. I cleaned that apartment as if it still mattered. I thought, at least she still needed me. I didn't keep track. I didn't add up hours or dollars, but maybe I should have saved a little space for me because now I'm not even on the guest list. That's what hurts the most. Not only exclusion, the rewriting of the story. I never tried to buy my daughter's love. I built her foundation. I never imagined I would use it to build a life where I wasn't welcome. I've been her refuge since she was born, and now, somehow, I became an annoyance, a scheduling conflict, a stream viewer. I just wanted to give her more than I had, but now I can't help wondering what's left of me. I didn't cry on the way to the bank, nor did I feel anger. It was another sensation, like the moment before a storm, when the air calms and everything becomes strange, and you know something is going to change. The friendly manager recognized me immediately. We spoke last month when I transferred the first $5,000 to the place in Valle de Guadalupe. He had praised my signature, clear as a teacher's. I remember smiling. I didn't smile today. Mrs. Johnson, he said, getting up from his desk. How can I help you? I sat down slowly, leaving my bag by my feet. My voice was calm, precise. I want to cancel the transfer scheduled for the 10th of $9,000. He blinked. The second payment for the wedding. Yes, I said. He hesitated. There could be a penalty, depending on the status of the process. May I ask? Circumstances have changed, I interrupted softly. He checked the system and nodded. You're lucky. It hasn't finalized. I can reverse it. Do it, I said. And that was that. I signed 2 more forms. The pen in my hand felt strangely heavy. When I got back to the car, the sun was beating down hard against the windshield. I stayed in the parking lot for a few minutes, watching an older couple walk slowly towards the entrance, holding hands. I wondered how it would feel to have someone by your side who really sees you, even when you have nothing more to give. At home, I opened the wine I saved for Thanksgiving. Camila was going to visit me that year, but canceled 2 days before. Work, she said. I poured a glass. I sat on the porch. I let the warmth sink into my skin. My cell phone vibrated twice, then another and another. Camila, Matthew, unknown numbers. I put the phone face down. They wanted explanations, but for the first time, I had nothing to say. If I wasn't welcome in person, I wouldn't appear on paper either. Let them feel the absence, not the one transmitted by Wi-Fi, but the one that takes the floor from under you, because this time, I was the one retreating silently. Finally, a knock came just before sunset when the sky was golden and calm and the world began to cool. I was on my second glass of wine, rocking slowly on the porch, barefoot, watching the wind chase leaves across the grass. I knew it was someone familiar, that kind of knock that hesitates at the end. Still, I wasn't expecting Matthew. He looked tired. His shirt was wrinkled, sleeves rolled up, tie stuffed in his pocket, as if he'd already had a long talk and didn't want another. He stood at the foot of the steps, one hand on the railing, the other holding his phone like a white flag. Hi, Mom, he said. I nodded. Good afternoon. He stayed there, uncomfortable. Can I come up? Can we talk? It's easier from there, I said. He smiled, half-sighed, and climbed the steps, but he didn't sit down. She's going crazy, he said. Camila. She says you canceled the transfer. I did, I said. She's under a lot of pressure, he said. Michael's family is pushing her. The organizer, it's not personal, just a matter of numbers. Venue capacity. Oh, I said, taking a sip. So I'm not a person, I'm a number. I didn't mean that. Sure you didn't. He looked toward the yard, searching for an opening. She thought you'd understand, that you'd be fine watching from home. I paid for the venue, I said, and the photographer and the jazz trio. I thought that would buy me at least a folding chair. Come on, Mom. No, I said quietly, setting down the glass. Let me ask you something. Would you go to a wedding you weren't invited to just because you paid for the cake? He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Exactly. He rubbed the back of his neck. She didn't mean to hurt you, he said, but she did. Matthew seemed younger than usual, almost boyish. It wasn't his fault. He just didn't know how to stand in the middle without sinking. I'll talk to her, he murmured. I didn't stop him. I picked up my glass again, leaned back in the chair, and watched him leave. His car door closed with a soft click, not a slam, a small mercy, I suppose. And then I sat in silence, without explanations, without needing to defend myself, without even pain. Just the surprising calm of realizing I didn't have to keep proving my worth to be in the room. Let them deal with my silence. I was starting to, and it didn't hurt anymore. By Friday, the flood began. Message after message, voicemail after voicemail, my inbox filled with emails marked urgent. Most were from Camila. Some from unknown numbers, likely the organizer, or maybe a relative of Michael's, trying to sound neutral while pushing an agenda. At first, the tone was controlled, civil. Hello, Mom. The organizer hasn't received the second payment. Maybe there was a delay with the bank. Then it shifted. Mom, the deposit bounced. The venue says if it's not resolved by the 5th, we lose the date. The florist needs confirmation. We can't keep the order without full payment. I didn't reply. I didn't delete them either. I let them pile up as proof of a world crumbling on someone else's terms for once. The voicemails came. Her voice was tense, cutting. That professional panic people use when they're trying not to sound as desperate as they are. I know you're upset. I didn't mean to hurt you. This is complicated. Michael's mom, she's furious. She thinks you're doing this on purpose. I told her you're not like that, but I stopped listening there. I couldn't stand hearing myself described as a PR problem to manage. That afternoon, I sat in the kitchen and opened the cabinet where I keep my old recipe cards, things I hadn't looked at in years. I found my mother's peach pie recipe, handwritten in faded ink with margin notes. I baked slowly, deliberately, like a ritual. Outside, the phone vibrated against the counter. At 2:14 p.m., late, she finally said what I expected to hear, not because it made a difference, but because it told me everything I needed to know. Okay, if this is about not inviting you, we can talk about making space for you, but please, we need that money. I'm begging. That was when everything crystallized. It wasn't about suddenly being welcome. It was a lever. She didn't want her mother there. She wanted the funds. My presence was no longer irrelevant. Now it was conditional, transactional, a tool, one more box on the organizer's checklist. I stood by the stove, wiped flour from the counter, and poured a second cup of coffee. No tears, no anger, no revenge brewing, just math. For years, I paid the bill without question, but I was no longer in the red. I was done giving to those who measured my value by how quickly I said yes. If my absence caused such chaos, maybe it meant I held more than they ever recognized. And maybe it was time they noticed how hard it is to lose the woman who thought she'd always stay. It was just after 6 when I heard the knock, softness, uncertain, the kind that says, if you don't answer, I'll understand. I had just taken a lemon cake out of the oven, something to occupy my hands more than my appetite. The aroma filled the house with a comfort I hadn't felt in weeks. When I opened the door, there was Sarah. I blinked, not because I didn't recognize her, but because years had passed. She looked older, of course, cheekbones more defined, more makeup than I remembered, but the eyes were the same, kind, inquisitive, a little nervous. "Hello, Mrs. Johnson," she said softly. "I hope this isn't a bad time." "Come in," I said, stepping aside. "You're always welcome." She gave a small smile and followed me into the kitchen. "It smells like cake in here." "It is. Sit down. Eat." She didn't argue. That was always Sarah. Respectful, observant, one of Emily's few childhood friends who treated our house as more than a sleepover spot. She wrote a thank you card when they graduated high school. I still have it in a drawer somewhere. I set 2 cups on the table and handed her one. She didn't drink right away. "She doesn't know I'm here," she said. "I got it. I figured. It's out of control, honestly. She's yelling at Michael, crying alone, pretending in public, like she can't admit how much she messed up." I stirred my tea slowly. "Because that would mean taking responsibility." Sarah nodded. "She keeps saying it got complicated, that she didn't think you'd care so much about the guest list." I let out a short sigh. "That's the problem. She didn't think." "She's not a monster," Sarah added softly. "She's just broken in a way you couldn't fix." I looked her straight in the eyes. "I stopped trying to fix it a long time ago. She didn't notice." She swallowed. "She thought you'd hate her." "No, I just loved myself more in the end." Sarah looked at her cup, then at me. "Is there anything I can say or do to change this?" I shook my head. "You don't need to fix this for her, Sarah. I've already let go." We sat in silence for a long time. The kettle clicked off behind us. The smell of lemon and sugar floated in the warm air. "She's going to ask if you're coming to the wedding," Sarah said as she stood to leave. "I already went," I said quietly. "I just wasn't invited." At the door, she turned and gave me a long, unreadable look. Then she whispered, "You were the only one she thought would never leave." I nodded once. That's why it mattered when I did. And with that, she left. The wedding didn't happen, at least not the one they planned on Pinterest boards and spreadsheets. The vineyard in Valle de Guadalupe pulled out without payment, without a date. The florist followed after 3 weeks of unanswered emails and no deposit. They said the flowers went to another bride. Then the organizer bailed entirely. Unrealistic expectations was the phrase, according to Matthew. He tried to soften it. I let him try. What remained was a tent in Michael's parents' backyard. Matthew said it was last minute, thrown together in a rush. Mismatched chairs, borrowed tablecloths, someone's uncle playing acoustic guitar. Some neighbors came, a few cousins, fewer than 30 people, including the caterer. Camilla wore a dress from a downtown boutique, ivory satin, not the designer one she'd raved about for months. Matthew said she looked nice, but not happy. She smiled in the photos. Her shoulders were tense. They didn't stream it. They didn't send a link. The morning of that backyard ceremony, I woke up early and made blueberry pancakes. I'd bought the berries the day before on sale. No plan for them. Just felt like a good way to start the day. Just after 10 a.m., an email from Camila. The subject line read, "Please read this." It was long, half apology, half rewriting history. She said she regretted how things turned out, that it wasn't her intention to exclude me, that she didn't know how to undo what had been done. She mentioned pressure, confusion, managing expectations. She said she didn't want to make me feel unwanted. She never said she was sorry for what she did, only that she felt bad for hurting me. I read it once, maybe twice. Then I filed it away and haven't looked at it since. I didn't reply. There was a time when I would have poured over every word, searching for one that meant hope, but I wasn't that woman anymore. I changed, got dressed, put my hair up, and went to my ceramics class. That day, I made a mug. It came out uneven, heavy on one side, chipped on the edge, but when you held it, it felt real, imperfect, mine. Tuesday nights became my favorite part of the week. Ceramics, then dinner with Patricia and Monica from the office. 2 women who never asked me for anything but always saved a seat. We laughed about kitchen disasters, embarrassing moments, and how freeing it was to be too old to pretend. And so I started to move on, not with revenge, not even with sadness, just with peace. Because when someone makes your love optional, your absence becomes power, and when they no longer need you to hold everything up, you can choose to hold yourself. A quiet Sunday came, one of those crisp fall afternoons where the air calls for a sweater, but the sun still warms your skin like summer never fully left. I was in the backyard, tending to the tomato vines. They grew better than expected. Everyone said I planted them too late, that they wouldn't thrive, too much risk, little reward. But there they were, strong, stubborn, full of small green promises. The phone vibrated in my pocket. I let it ring. I let it buzz until the call died silently against my leg. When I checked later, I saw her name, Camila Johnson, a new voicemail. I didn't open it right away. I finished watering. I plucked some dry leaves from the vines. I adjusted the stakes holding them up. Then I sat in the shade and let the breeze cool my neck. Only when the world was calm did I press play. "Please, Mom, just tell me what you want." That was all, 7 words, spoken short, worn, a little frayed at the edges, but still missing the word I never demanded out of duty, only out of respect. "Sorry," she didn't say. Not "I miss you." Not "I love you." Not "I understand now." Just a question about what I wanted, so she could decide if it was something she could give. I didn't call back. Instead, I deleted the voicemail without ceremony, without hesitation, because what I wanted was already happening. I wanted tomorrows without bracing for disappointment, days where my love wasn't traded like currency, sitting in a garden I planted, drinking coffee from a mug I shaped with my hands, and feeling whole without needing to be needed. That night, I brought a pie to Monica's house. We sat under string lights in her yard, her dog snoring at our feet. She told me her daughter sent a meme about menopause that made her laugh until she cried. We didn't talk about Camila. And I didn't think about her until late, when I was at the sink, washing dishes, and realized I hadn't thought about her all day. Not with pain, not with longing, just peace. There was no thunder, no closure email, no grand statement, just silence, just breath, just life, finally mine again. Some weddings are just ceremonies, but some absences, those are the true vows. And this time, I kept mine to myself.